July 11th, 1986, Wembley Stadium, London. The summer air was thick with anticipation as 72,000 voices filled every corner of London's most iconic venue. Queen was performing the opening night of their Magic Tour, and Freddie Mercury stood center stage bathed in white light, conducting an ocean of humanity through Somebody to Love. The gospel-influenced anthem had become one of Queen's most beloved crowd participation moments, and the energy radiating through Wembley that night felt almost supernatural. Every voice in that stadium was singing in perfect unison, creating a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very foundations of the historic venue. But in exactly 90 seconds, Freddie Mercury would do something he had never done in his entire 20-year career. He would stop performing mid-song, freeze the entire production, and stare into the VIP section with an expression of pure shock visible to everyone in the stadium. What happened next between the King of Rock and the King of Pop would become the most talked about moment in music history. But nobody in that London stadium was prepared for the explosion of talent, ego, and ultimately, unexpected brotherhood that was about to unfold. The Magic Tour was more than just another concert series. It was Freddie's direct response to critics who had been claiming for months that Queen was becoming too theatrical, too removed from their rock roots, too focused on spectacle over substance. The elaborate stage production featured cutting-edge pyrotechnics that pushed the boundaries of what was technically possible in 1986. The choreography demanded physical endurance that would challenge athletes half Freddie's age. The set list was carefully curated to showcase Queen's extraordinary range, from hard-driving rock anthems to delicate ballads to operatic masterpieces. Everything about this tour was designed to prove one undeniable point. Queen was still the undisputed champion of rock music, and nobody could touch them when they were performing on their home turf. The previous year's triumph at Live Aid had cemented their status as the greatest live band on the planet. That 20-minute performance had been watched by over 1 billion people worldwide and was universally acclaimed as the greatest live rock performance in history. Music critics who had dismissed Queen as has-beens were forced to acknowledge that Freddie Mercury commanded a stage like nobody else alive. This Wembley performance was meant to be their victory lap, their triumphant declaration of dominance in front of a home crowd that had supported them since their struggling days in dingy London clubs. But what Freddie didn't know as he sang to those 72,000 adoring fans was that his biggest rival had already been in the building for over 2 hours, watching, analyzing, and preparing to execute a plan that would shock the music world. Michael Jackson hadn't come to London to watch quietly from the audience, like a respectful peer acknowledging another artist's moment. He had come with a carefully orchestrated plan that had been weeks in the making, a public challenge designed to settle, once and for all, the question that had consumed music industry gossip for years. Who was the greatest performer of their generation? The relationship between Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson had been the music industry's most fascinating and complex rivalry for over 5 years by 1986. What had started as genuine mutual respect between two incredibly gifted artists had evolved into something far more intense and competitive. These were two men with profoundly contrasting artistic styles and completely different approaches to fame. Yet both were competing for the same global audience, the same critical acclaim, the same place in history. Most importantly, they both possessed massive egos and unshakable self-belief that seemed fundamentally incapable of coexisting peacefully in the same musical universe. Freddie Mercury was the flamboyant rock god whose operatic vocals and commanding stage presence had made Queen the most dynamic live act on the planet. He could control stadium crowds with a single gesture, could make 70,000 people sing in perfect unison with just a wave of his hand, could transform a simple rock concert into something approaching a religious experience. His performances were raw, emotional, spontaneous, filled with genuine connection to his audience. Michael Jackson was the polished pop perfectionist whose meticulously choreographed performances and universal appeal had made him the biggest entertainer in the world. His precision was legendary, his attention to detail obsessive, his ability to capture the cultural zeitgeist absolutely unmatched. Every move was calculated, every note was perfect, every performance was engineered for maximum impact. Both men knew they were fighting for the same crown, the same ultimate validation, the title of greatest performer of their generation. The Wembley concert was supposed to be Freddie's triumphant declaration of dominance on home soil. The Magic Tour had already shattered attendance records across Europe, with sold-out shows in every major city. This performance was designed to cement Queen's status as the most powerful force in rock music, to remind the world that nobody could match their combination of musical sophistication and raw performance power. But 3 days before the show, something had happened that sent shockwaves through the music industry and set the stage for what would become a legendary confrontation. During a BBC Radio 1 interview that was broadcast across the United Kingdom, Michael Jackson had made a comment that was clearly, deliberately designed to provoke his rival. "I hear Freddie's bringing his little rock show to Wembley this week," Michael had said with his characteristic soft-spoken intensity that was somehow perfectly audible even through radio waves. "Maybe I should drop by and show London what real entertainment looks like when it's not hiding behind costumes and smoke machines." The comment was vintage Michael Jackson. Polite on the surface but cutting underneath, perfectly calculated to get under Freddie's skin without generating negative publicity. Nobody in the music industry took it seriously. Michael was famous for subtle competitive statements, verbal jabs designed to assert dominance. Everyone assumed this was just posturing, the kind of thing celebrities said to generate headlines. What nobody knew was that Michael Jackson had been planning his London appearance for weeks, deadly serious about upstaging Freddie Mercury on his own home turf in front of the largest audience possible. Carlos Rodriguez, Michael's longtime security chief, later revealed in a 1995 interview just how extensively Michael had prepared for this moment. "Michael was absolutely fascinated with the Freddie's stage presence," Carlos recalled, his voice still filled with amazement. "He respected Freddie's talent immensely. He had studied Queen's Live Aid performance like it was a masterclass, watching the footage repeatedly, analyzing every gesture, every interaction with the crowd. But he couldn't stand the idea that the world saw Freddie as the ultimate live performer, while Michael was just another studio perfectionist who couldn't translate his recorded success to live performance." Michael had obtained detailed inside information about Queen's concert logistics through his extensive industry network. He knew Wembley's layout better than most venue staff. He had studied security protocols, backstage access routes, even specific details about the set list and stage design. He had analyzed video footage from the Magic Tour's European dates, identifying the exact moment when he could make the most dramatic impact, when the crowd would be most engaged and receptive to something unexpected. This wasn't casual research or simple curiosity. This was military-level strategic planning, the kind of meticulous preparation that Michael brought to everything he did. He had contingency plans for every possible scenario, backup strategies if his primary approach didn't work, alternative entry points if his preferred route was blocked. Michael wasn't just planning to attend the concert as a spectator, Carlos continued, his voice dropping to emphasize the significance of what he was revealing. He was planning to challenge Freddie to a performance duel in front of 72,000 people and a live television audience that would be watching across Europe. He wanted to prove once and for all that he was the superior entertainer, the better performer, the rightful king of live music, and he was willing to risk everything. His reputation, his carefully cultivated image, his professional relationships, to make his point. On the evening of July 11th, Freddie Mercury took the Wembley Stadium stage completely unaware that his biggest rival was already in the building, already watching, already preparing to execute his carefully planned challenge. Michael had arrived at the venue 4 hours before showtime, using his extensive industry connections and considerable influence to gain VIP access without appearing on any official guest lists or generating any attention from venue security or media personnel who might leak his presence. His team had positioned him strategically in a premium box that offered a perfect view of the stage and was clearly visible from where Freddie would be performing, but which was partially concealed from most of the general audience who would be focused on the stage rather than scanning the VIP sections. Michael was dressed in his signature style, a custom-made black leather jacket with intricate silver military detailing and matching pants that caught the stadium lights perfectly, creating an unmistakable silhouette. He had positioned himself carefully to remain hidden until he chose to reveal his presence, controlling the timing of his dramatic entrance with the same precision he brought to every choreographed performance. For the first 2 hours of Queen's performance, Michael watched in complete silence, his eyes never leaving the stage, his focus absolute. Those who noticed him in the VIP section later reported that Michael appeared intensely concentrated, like a chess master analyzing his opponent's strategy before making his crucial move. He wasn't just watching Freddie perform for entertainment. He was studying every gesture, every vocal inflection, every moment of connection with the crowd, looking for any sign of weakness or imperfection he could exploit. But Michael wasn't just observing. He was waiting for the perfect moment to make his presence known and issue his challenge in the most public and dramatic way possible. When that moment arrived, the impact was electric. Freddie Mercury was deep into Somebody to Love, his voice soaring through complex harmonies with distinctive power. Wembley Stadium pulsed with energy as 72,000 voices sang along, creating a wall of sound, overwhelming in its intensity. Freddie was conducting the massive choir during the call and response section, his arms moving in broad theatrical gestures, when Michael Jackson made his move. It started subtly. Michael stood up slowly in his VIP box and began what would become his signature gesture, a slow, rhythmic clap that cut through the thunderous applause like a blade. It was his way of saying, "That's impressive, but let me show you how it's really done." Freddie Mercury, who had developed supernatural awareness of his audience during decades of performing, immediately sensed something unusual. The distinctive rhythm of Michael's slow clap stood out like a discordant note in an otherwise perfect symphony. His performer instincts told him something significant was happening in the VIP section. When Freddie looked up and saw Michael Jackson standing there in his unmistakable black leather outfit, slowly clapping with that characteristic expression of amused superiority, the king of rock experienced pure shock visible to everyone in the stadium. For several seconds, Freddie continued singing, muscle memory carrying him through familiar lyrics while his mind processed what he was seeing. Michael wasn't supposed to be here. Michael never attended other artists' concerts. Yet there he was, making it absolutely clear he wasn't just a spectator. He was delivering a challenge. Then Freddie did something that stunned everyone at Wembley Stadium, including his bandmates. He stopped singing mid-phrase, his voice cutting off abruptly. He signaled sharply to Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon for the music to cut out completely. And he stared directly at Michael with an expression mixing shock, anger, and something else. Intrigue, respect for the audacity, recognition that this moment was historic. The silence was immediate and absolute. 72,000 people stopped singing mid-breath, stopped moving, trying to understand what was happening. Freddie stood center stage, chest heaving, looking up at Michael in the VIP section, while Michael continued his slow, deliberate clap and maintained steady eye contact. The tension was so intense it seemed to vibrate in the air, creating almost physical pressure everyone could feel. Two of the most talented performers in the world were facing off in front of tens of thousands, live, and millions watching on television, and neither was backing down. The silence stretched for nearly a minute, an eternity in live performance time, as the crowd held its collective breath and witnessed the most famous rivalry in music history playing out in real time. Finally, Freddie picked up his microphone with deliberate slowness and addressed Michael directly. "Ladies and gentlemen," Freddie announced, his tone controlled but charged with electricity. "We have a very special and completely unexpected guest in the audience tonight, the one and only Michael Jackson." The crowd erupted in confused applause and excited screaming. People turned to each other, grabbing neighbors' arms, trying to figure out if this was planned or completely spontaneous. The energy shifted dramatically as 72,000 people realized they might be witnessing something unprecedented. Freddie Mercury, still looking directly at Michael with unwavering intensity, issued a public challenge nobody saw coming. "Michael," Freddie said, his voice carrying an edge of competitive fire his fans rarely heard, "since you took the trouble to come all the way to London, why don't you come down here and show these people what you think real entertainment looks like?" The challenge was unmistakable. Freddie Mercury was inviting Michael Jackson on stage, not for friendly collaboration, but for head-to-head performance confrontation in front of 72,000 witnesses and television cameras broadcasting live across Europe. Michael's response was immediate, theatrical, and perfectly in character. He smiled that famous enigmatic smile, gave an elaborate bow, both respectful and slightly mocking, and began making his way down from the VIP section with confident stride. As he moved through the crowd, his security team clearing a path, his technical crew began coordinating with Wembley's staff in a way that made it clear this moment, despite appearing spontaneous, hadn't been unplanned. The atmosphere was now electric beyond description. 72,000 people were about to witness something unprecedented, a live musical battle between two of the greatest entertainers of their generation. Jennifer Walsh, one of Wembley's senior technical coordinators, later revealed how prepared Michael had been. Michael's people had been in contact with our technical crew for 3 days before the concert, she admitted in a 1990 interview. They had brought backup dancers, his preferred microphone setup, even a portable sound system. This wasn't a surprise visit. It was a carefully orchestrated challenge planned down to the smallest detail. As Michael reached the stage and began setting up with practiced efficiency, something completely unexpected happened. The competitive tension that had been building for over 5 years started transforming into something entirely different, a recognition of mutual respect and professional admiration that neither man had expected. Standing face to face for the first time in years, looking directly into each other's eyes, Freddie and Michael both seemed to realize simultaneously that their rivalry, while real and intense, was also somewhat artificial, manufactured by media narratives and their own competitive egos. They were both at the absolute peak of their careers. Both had proven their worth countless times. Both had achieved levels of success that made further competition almost meaningless. What more was there to prove? "You know what?" Michael said, speaking loud enough for his microphone to broadcast throughout the stadium. "This is kind of ridiculous. We're both at the top of our game. Let's just make some music together and give these people something they'll never forget." Freddie's response revealed the grace and wisdom that made him genuinely evolved. "You're absolutely right," Freddie replied, his competitive edge softening into genuine warmth. "Let's show London what happens when great artists create something together instead of trying to destroy each other." What followed was extraordinary. Instead of battling, they collaborated, creating an impromptu medley showcasing both talents without either trying to dominate. They started with a rock-influenced Billie Jean that allowed Michael to demonstrate his legendary vocal precision, while Freddie provided backing vocals that complemented rather than competed. Then they moved into a pop-influenced "We Will Rock You" that highlighted both their abilities as crowd controllers. Michael's moonwalk, combined with Freddie's theatrical gestures, created a visual spectacle that had the crowd screaming. The emotional climax came with an impromptu "Don't Stop Me Now," Michael providing harmonies to Freddie's lead vocals and piano work. The sight of the King of Pop supporting Queen's frontman was so unexpected and moving that many in the audience found themselves crying. When the song ended, Freddie and Michael embraced on stage, a genuine, heartfelt hug that lasted several seconds and signaled the end of their public rivalry and the beginning of mutual respect that would define their relationship for the rest of their careers. When Freddie died in 1991, among his treasured possessions was a handwritten letter from Michael, thanking him for reminding him that music was about connection and collaboration, not competition and conquest.